War is a political phenomenon. However, in the main, it is a special kind of human behavior. Hence, there is greater need for its psychological study than a political analysis. Social psychology is the study of human behavior in its collective aspect and in social circumstances. Hence, social psychology does not trespass on the grounds of any other science in studying war. The objective of this psychological study is to discover those fundamental psychological factors that cause war. As a general rule, the occurrence of war can be attributed to a variety of causes, such as political disturbance. However, fundamentally, war is the outcome of tension between two nations. In fact, wars do not happen instantaneously. However, are rather the outcome of long periods of tensions and conflicts. War can take place only if both the parties take part in it and are prepared to participate in it. It is the contention of some thinkers that wars take place because of the instinct of aggression or pugnacity that is present in man, and consequently it is not possible to put an end to war. It cannot be eliminated in totality. The social psychology of war and peace will not only bring to light the causes of war. However, it will also unravel the mystery of whether war is inevitable or not. As to whether war is inevitable or not, this depends upon the extent, if any, to which those psychological factors can be varied and modified that cause war. Many anthropologists have made important researches in this connection, and it is necessary to keep them in view. Psychological causes of war. The tendencies of aggression and combat. As has been indicated earlier, it is the opinion of some thinkers that wars are caused by the instinct of aggression. This contention has been borne out by some psychologists also. However, the researches of many anthropologists have almost conclusively proved that the instinct of aggression is not innate and universal. For example, the Arabic people of New Guinea are of a very peaceful and quiet nature. Then, war cannot be said to be the exclusive expression and manifestation of the instinct for aggression. It is a matter of common knowledge that this instinct is satisfied and sublimated through the medium of various games and sports. Each and every one of the tendencies of man can be changed to a considerable extent. If people have been fighting wars all through the ages to the present day, it does not necessarily follow that war is inevitable. In the essay, The Causes and the Prevention of War I, Dunlop has maintained that from the viewpoint of instincts, our tribal ancestors possessed the instinct of not bathing. However, even though taking a bath is not quite as popular today as it ought to be, nevertheless, we have achieved adequate success in removing the instinct of not bathing, and it has been replaced by the instinct of bathing. 1,000 years ago, it was quite as absurd to say that because people generally remain dirty, there is no real hope that they will ever be clean and tidy, as it was to remark 30 years ago that because men have always been fighting, there is nothing that can turn them into peaceful individuals and beings. The will to power and mastery motive. Nietzsche believed that the will to power is universal in man. Adler placed supreme importance upon the mastery motive in man. As a result of this instinct, the rivalry and competition is increased. However, it has been learned from the researches and studies of various anthropologists that the mastery motive is neither innate nor universal. For example, the Zuni and Hopi Indians are found deficient In this respect, the mastery motive is not particularly dominant in them. In fact, it has been proved on the basis of many experiments that acquired patterns are assimilated in the conduct in war. It is true that the individual wants to retaliate when his self-respect is injured. However, it is not necessary that for this retaliation he should have recourse to violence. Instinct of war. Some thinkers have gone to the extent of regarding war as an instinct. Warlike behavior is found in the case of ants and some other species of animals. However, war cannot be said to be innate in the human race. In his famous work, A Social Psychology of War and Peace, Mark A. May has written that the instinct for both war and peace are dependent upon man's habits and the conditions of his environment. Further, some thinkers are inclined to believe that men can learn to abstain from war just as they have learned to indulge in it. Vested interest. It is a psychological fact that man is selfish and is untroubled by thoughts of harming others in his efforts to gain his own ends. Taking this fact into consideration, some people have come to think that bankers and traders dealing in the implements of war and other interested parties initiate war in order to achieve their own ends. There can be little doubt that wars are often initiated in order to protect and even enhance vested interests. However, from this, it cannot be concluded that such is invariably the case or that this will inevitably happen. It is seen that in times of war, the economic organization in society is violently shaken, and hence many traders and businessmen vociferously object to war. Need for war. Man quickly tires and wearies of an even and monotonous life, and he desires change, variety, and excitement in life. Some people attribute war to this desire of novelty and excitement in man. In Men Like War, L.C. Roston has written, the army offers the thrill of uniform, the variety of charons, the pride of decoration for bravery. There is the irresistible excitement of the drums and the intoxicating pleasure of the military band. There is the melodrama of flags, pageants, parades, extravagant oratory, and the glorious thrill of being worshipped by the mothers, sweethearts, and the multitudes that line the bulwarks. There can be little, if any, doubt that the soldier does receive such excitations and stimulating experiences from war. Some people come by fame and earn renown in war. There is danger in war, and people revel in the pleasure they get in facing the dangers and fighting them. Further, in war, many things are accepted as normal that would otherwise be looked upon as abnormal. It gives a free license in many things. It provides ample scope for inhibited expression of lust and sex pleasure, as the women folk of the vanquished are free repositories of unabated sexuality without any limits on sadistic thrills, thorough sodomy, lacration, etc. However, the misery, bloodshed, poverty, and suffering that are the result of war are too overwhelming a price to pay for this excitement that the soldier gets from war, and no sane person would welcome war if he is alive to its reality and all that it entails. Psychological suggestions. At the root of war is another psychological cause. It is the suggestion that war is necessary and inevitable. When this suggestion circulates in the general public, the people become agitated and excited, and they then demand war and prepare to make all possible sacrifices. Other psychological factors. The social psychologist Britt has indicated that it is true of every particular individual that his wartime behavior is influenced by the desires of novel experiences, security, bravery, leadership, etc. In this manner, there may be all kinds of psychological factors and elements at the root of war. Sometimes one sees the manifestation of suppressed hatred in war. Some prejudices and stereotypes also function at the root of war. War is a reaction to danger or crisis. When the country is faced by a crisis, the people of the country come forward to do their bit, and there is literally nothing at which they will stop in this condition. At such a time, all people support the idea of war, even if there is some alternative which can replace war. One psychological factor at the root of war is fear. On the other hand, it is not unusual for the racial or nationalistic prejudice or mental aberration of the leader to become the cause of war. The tendency towards bureaucracy is itself a cause of war. Other causes of war. Social psychology reflects upon the psychological causes of war, and hence it fails to take into account other causes. War is a complex process. In addition to its psychological causes, it stems from other sources of a political, economic, or biological nature and a multitude of others. A common example is the war which is initiated in order to gain some or the other political end. Similarly, rulers have been known to start a war merely to divert the attention of the public from the worsening condition of the internal economy for which they would be held responsible. Excessive differences between the various strata of society lead to increased class struggle, which may result in war. According to the famous economist Malthus, the population increases in geometrical progression, whereas the means of subsistence increase only in arithmetical progression, with the inevitable result that at some time or the other, the population will be so great that the available resources will not be able to sustain it. When things have reached such a pass, wars will invariably result if the people themselves do not take adequate measures to restore the parity between the means of subsistence and the population that is to be supported by them. In this way, a high birth rate may be cause of war. The feeling in favor of war is further encouraged by many social problems such as unemployment, poverty, injustice, corruption, high cost of living, etc. It is a common proverb that wealth, land, and women are the causes of war. Even today, there are wars for land and for wealth. The wars for women used to take place in the olden times. However, at the moment, they are not in vogue. Thus, there are many causes of war, and if war is to be avoided, it is necessary to make concerted efforts in all directions. Social psychology performs a very useful function in clearly and precisely depicting the problem of war, and it further makes suggestions for preventing war. However, to act upon these problems and to actively implement them is the work of the politician and the administrator. As a general rule, for whatever it is worth, all those methods can be applied to the prevention of war that may help to reduce international tensions. Facts about war. In his famous essay, Human Nature and the Peace, which was published in the Psychological Bulletin, G.W. Alport has mentioned an anthology of 10 principles which was signed by more than 2,000 American psychologists during Second World War. Let us now take a look at a brief summary of the 10 principles of this anthology. War is not inevitable. It is possible to evade because it is not innate. No race, nation, or social group is invariably a lover and preacher of war. At the root of war, there are some frustrations and conflicts between some interests. The causes of war may be removed by education and the improvement of social conditions. Importance of future generation in the plan for peace. The plan for peace should be based on the future generation because it is capable of being molded. Its behavior may be molded on any desired pattern. The children can easily grasp the idea of peace and its principles, and they can conform to one such pattern of conduct which allows the least possible scope for autocratic practices, corruption, favorism, insecurity, and ignorance. Control on favorism and hatred. The national, racial, and collective or social prejudice, hates, and dislikes may be controlled through education and moral uplift. Men can be made to realize that the members of all races, nations, and groups are more or less alike, and they share with every other race their problems, aspirations, desires, and needs. The prejudice of the people can be removed if they may be made to realize this simple fact. Propagation of the notion of equality. Equality in every respect must be introduced in order to prevent war and to establish permanent peace. The policy of segregation on whatever ground, be in religion, race, nation, or any other basis, promotes tensions and hence gives rise to the causes and the possibility of war. Effect of unwarranted interference in self-government. For peace, it is necessary that the people of the various nations should be given the right of self-government, and at the same time such government should be subject to the least possible. If any interference on the part of other nations, in the absence of this self-government, the people are constantly aware of oppression and they are tempted to revolt, and these conditions are in no sense conducive to permanent peace. Proper rewards and punishments. High intelligence and prudence must be practiced in awarding laurels and punishing the people involved in war, and every effort must be made to see that punishment occurs to only that individual who is really deserving of it. Those who are harmless must be protected against any kind of injustice. Rehabilitation without injury to self-respect. After the losing nations or groups have surrendered at the conclusion of the war, their people should be rehabilitated and their self-respect should not be injured. Whenever the self-respect of the individuals is attacked, the danger and the possibility of revolt is created. The equality of self-respect gives birth to self-dependence and self-confidence, both of which are fairly necessary for cooperation. No assistance should take the form of aims or graft, and no such method should be employed as will injure the self-respect of the individual influenced. Attention to and respect of the common individual. Permanent peace depends upon the public. Consequently, in its plan, it is necessary to make adequate provisions for satisfying the desires of the common individuals. Bigger units for collective security. The more comprehensive the sphere of human relations, the greater will be the degree of permanence achieved in world peace. If international or regional governments that transcend the limits and borders of nations can be established, then this will lead to a greater possibility of collective peace. Integrity of promises. In order to give proper direction to the reactions that come into existence following a war, it is necessary that responsible parties should adhere to and be adamant in the promises that they made during the war, and they should see to it that these promises are fulfilled. If this does not happen, then the degree of disbelief increases and the possibility of a fresh war rears its ugly head. Suggestions for peace. The establishment of permanent peace demands that some other facts in addition to those mentioned above should be kept in view. These facts are the following. Education for peace. Just as man learns to fight and go to war, he may also learn to live peacefully. For this, it is necessary to educate the public and particularly the young men and women in peace so that they may learn to look upon themselves as citizens of the world and work as members of an international organization. Development of international relations. the most practicable method of eliminating the prejudice, stereotypes, etc., that are present at the root of war is to promote international relations. And for this, it is necessary to create the maximum number of international institutions in each and every region of the world. This will help to enhance international cooperation, and people will get the opportunity of coming into contact with each other. Consequently, international objectives will be present before the people and unity will improve. Social and economic welfare. Social and economic inequality is the greatest single enemy of permanent peace. If peace is to be made a reality, it is necessary that the social and economic inequalities such as poverty, insecurity, untouchability, racial segregation, and color bar should be completely and permanently eliminated. People of all the nations of the world should be helped to achieve social and economic welfare. From the above discussion, it is evident that if war is to be eliminated, it is necessary to make efforts in all directions, such as the economic, political, and social and others. It is, of course, true that the maximum effort will have to be in the sphere of psychology. And it is in this direction that the suggestions of social psychology have their greatest bearing. Conclusion. Research on social influence could help foster peace. Peace negotiators in the Middle East are gaining strategically from the principles of social psychology. Research on social influence and attitude change could help pave the way to peace. The root causes of conflict are unfulfilled or threatened human needs. Here we are talking primarily of psychological needs: security, identity, dignity, recognition, justice. Conflict is often viewed as negative much by the process of the relationship rather than by the issues. Parties in ethnic conflicts tend to assume a zero-sum relationship between their national identities. Each sees the other's identity as a fundamental threat to their own identity. So they deny the other's identity, rights, and often existence as a national group. Self-image is also very important. Each side sees itself as good and peaceful, and the other side as evil and inherently hostile. In intense conflicts, leaders attach a greater premium to hostile actions than to conciliatory actions. Prospect theory suggests that people are more inclined to take risks to avoid losses than they are to take risks to achieve gains. Failure to take risks when pursuing peace involves opportunity losses, but these don't weigh as heavily as the losses attributed to failure to respond with sufficient military force. Alternative forms of influence aren't high up in the repertoire of political decision makers. At the root of international tensions, there are some tendencies present that cannot be removed from human beings. The social psychologist suggests methods and ways whereby these tendencies can be satisfied and sublimated harmlessly. He is acquainted with dynamics of the social behavior of human beings. He knows what the human machine is prone to do in a particular social condition, and hence he is well equipped with the ability to prescribe the ways and means that can be employed in turning human behavior along desirable channels. It should here be kept in mind that the social psychologist himself cannot remove international tensions because the tools that are needed for this are not available to him but are controlled by the politicians, leaders, and administrators.